the electrical construction workforce is expected to decline 14% by 2030, but the demand is projected to rise 25%. That's a huge gap that we're going to see in the industry. So when you're seeing shortage of electricians, that also translates into a shortage office staff as well. So the demand is projected at 80,000 electricians annually through 2030. So the next 5 years to at least help us condense that gap. That's a lot of people to train. And then with those people coming in, who is then moving up into those management roles, all of those scenarios start to unfold.
On this week's show, Project Management Apprenticeship with ELECTRI, NECA, and Wesco. All right, we are back. Y'all might notice that it's me and two guests today, because this is so big. It takes two people to talk about it and introduce us to it. Nelson, how are you this morning?
Very good, Jeff. Thanks for having me on. Hope things are well on your end as well.
Hey, we're cranking along. It's an interesting 2025 already. So we're just going to keep cranking along. Anna, it is good to see you. This is twice or three times this year. So I'm excited to see you again. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, no, this year's definitely been very busy. So I've seen people significantly more than I have in the last couple years.
I wish we were back in Florida doing this there. That was a pretty nice little spot to be doing that. But, hey, we got to do it virtual. We do it virtual, right?
We make it work.
That is right. Hey, listen, if you guys are tuning in, check us out on all of our social media. Check out the new shorts. Check out youtube.com/at the ConTech Crew. Follow us so you get them in your feed. Are you trying to reach the innovators and decision makers in construction technology? Then look no further than sponsoring the ConTech Crew. That's right, we're taking new advertisers. Email us at advertising@thecontechcrew.com to learn more. All right, we are back. So Anna Jochim, I want to start with you because, this really came from you and your ideas there. So talk to me a little bit about yourself, what you do, and then we'll kind of roll into this project you guys have going.
So for everyone who is new to learning who I am, I'm Anna Jochim. I'm the Director of Future Workforce Development with ELECTRI International. They threw future in there, so I wouldn't be limited to just like a 5-year talent pipeline, but really that like big future planning with your 10, 20 years, 30 years down the road. I oversee different workforce development initiatives for ELECTRI International as well as NECA National to help provide new resources and tools for the industry. And this project management apprenticeship is my baby, really. It was not just my fever dream that created it, though. There were a lot of minds in the rooms that wanted to challenge how we were doing training. And over the last 2.5 years, we built out this program to really help the industry. We can dive into it a little bit more, but there was a lot of cooks in the kitchen when we brought this to life.
Well, and you can see that from how it came to life, but let people know what is NECA and what is ELECTRI.
I'll start with ELECTRI because that's my main team. ELECTRI International is really the research and development hub for the electrical contracting industry. We partner really closely with NECA, which is the Electrical Trade Association for our electrical contractors. We have about 4,000 contractors throughout the U.S., and we also have some partnerships internationally as well. But ELECTRI's focus is really on what tools, resources, and initiatives need to come into play in the industry to make sure that we are successful. There's a lot going on in the industry. It's really hard to keep up with it. Construction is at the whim of so many other, policies in the world, markets, supply chain, all of those different things come into effect when you're talking about the construction industry. So ELECTRI tries to stay ahead of all of that to make sure that we have the resources needed to staff projects, be efficient at projects, use AI in projects, all of those different types of things. And then NECA is the everything hub. It's education, it's events, it's networking, it's leadership development. It has all of these different aspects to really make sure that our contractors and our partners in the industry have what they need to be successful. There isn't models for everything. So NECA and ELECTRI really work together to make sure that if there is a problem happening or there is, major heartburn or split ends somewhere in the industry, that we're working together to kind of solve those issues, or at least be ahead of the curve as those issues are starting to come about.
Yeah, it's a great partnership and ability to stay looking forward and have a group that's working on a lot of the now and the things. So it's always it's always great to hear about it. I'm obviously very familiar with it and have spent a lot of time and love both the groups. So I was excited to have you on and talk about this. And like you said, there was a lot of great minds in the room and a lot of great people behind this. And Nelson Squires is one of them. So Nelson, tell everybody a little bit about you and Wesco and maybe kind of where your head's at on all this current workforce work we have to do.
Sure, Jeff, and both Jeff and Anna, great to be here today and to participate. It's a really important topic for us and for the industry. A little bit about myself. I'm based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is the home of Wesco. I would tell you on a related note, the most important subject that's being discussed in Pittsburgh these days is who's going to be the starting quarterback for the Steelers next year. And so that's the hot topic right now, despite everything else going on in the world. We still don't know what that answer is yet. But more about myself. I've been in the industry about 10 years. And what I'll tell you, it has definitely changed dramatically over those 10 years. And I'm sure we'll get into that and really making even more important and more obvious why we need to have the different kinds of partnerships that are out there today, and where everyone in the industry needs to have a part of working on future workforce, how we take care of where the world's going from an electrification standpoint, et cetera. My day job is I'm the executive VP and general manager for our electrical and electronic solutions business, or EES for short. We have three major businesses at Wesco. The one that I'm responsible for, and that's a global responsibility. So we have operations in over 50 countries, and about 7,000 people in the organization to come to work every day to take care of our customers. Prior to that, I was in the chemical industry for 25 years. And while, different industries going from chemical to electrical distribution, a lot of similar long-term workforce challenges. So a lot of things that I've worked on over the last 20 years are very relevant and relatable to what we're trying to do at Wesco. Maybe to just give you a little bit more about the business that I'm responsible for, again, the electrical portion of the company. We are really at the crossroads at the epicenter of all the work that's going on to not just to electrify, but to decarbonize and to, help the world get more power to where it's needed. And so before I go a little deeper, maybe tell you about the rest of the company because it's relevant. We have three segments as I described. Mine, one called CSS, which is Communications and Security Solutions. They're really, hyper-focused on security, wireless, data communications, et cetera, and a very large footprint in data centers. Data centers are, it's everyone's talking about data centers, the demand. A recent announcement in Pennsylvania around a $10 billion investment going in, so right in our home state. But these are happening everywhere. And our utility business is really working with all of, investor-owned utilities, public utilities, et cetera, making sure that, we are providing services and solutions, but enormous investment going on in that space to basically get the power to where it's needed. Statistics like the data centers are using 4 to 5% of overall usage of electricity in the U.S., and that's going to more than double before the end of the decade. So that business is really helping those customers enable that. So back to our business. Again, we are not just a supplier of SKUs or parts, et cetera. Obviously, it's a big part of what we do, but we're involved in multiple aspects and actually have this as a day-to-day offering on how we go to market. So starting with project management services, so executing projects, and our parts and what we build and the supply and services that we have are really focused on what I call larger construction projects. So think office buildings, hospitals, universities, so on and so forth, infrastructure projects. A lot of work over the last couple of years with the number of battery plants that are being built to build the batteries that are going into the EV chargers. And so we have significant responsibility and capability around that. Materials management, project deployment services. A big part of what we do is safety related. And I bring that up because one of the things that we're trying to provide to the industry is a one-stop solution for these needs, which are changing all the time. They're going to continue to change with the changes that have occurred in Washington, D.C. over the last 90 days. But suffice to say, we know a couple things. One is demand is only rising, and there's secular demand creation coming with all of this electrical infrastructure that's required, these new sources of energy that need to go into data centers. We've read about 3 Mile Island in Harrisburg being restarted, gas turbine plants or gas plants being started back up. We can and want to provide help to our customers along that entire journey. So from project development through sourcing, through execution, and our goal is to stay with these customers long term to provide MRO, services support, training, et cetera. And then layering over the whole thing, I would talk about safety as well. So it's an extremely important business to be in. We have a lot of new people entering the industry. And our goal is to make sure that when people are at work, whether it's at Wesco or at our customer or anyone that we interface with, we want them to be safer at work than they are outside of work, because we've got good policies, good training. We're holding people accountable. And I think that's a critical piece of this going forward as we are bringing newer people into the industry. We've got to do it safely. We've got to do the right level of training. So hopefully it gives you a little bit of who we are and what we're doing. And the last comment I'd make is it is a super exciting time to be in the electrical industry, whether you're NECA, ELECTRI, all the other organizations and all of us, my competitors, the suppliers that supply the industry, our customers, because we used to be looked at a little bit like a sleepy industry. This is an industry where people want to go today because we really are at the forefront and the part of the cornerstone of what the world's going to look like over the next 0 to 30 years. So very exciting time to be in the industry.
Yeah, I would fully agree. I spend a lot of time with my good friend Josh Bone from ELECTRI talking about just the scale in which the growth of electrification across the board that we're going to see, not only in our needs and infrastructure, but as you look at those data centers, you look at those hospital projects, battery plants, the scope size for the electricals is growing. I mean, they are becoming the 800-pound gorilla in a very short period of time. It's funny because their wires seem a little smaller and their piping's a little smaller than maybe some of my electrical and my mechanical and definitely my sheet metal. But I would say there's far more of it. And I don't think we really understand that electrification and its impact. And that impact created a need. And that's what I thought was cool about this project that you guys have. And Anna, you can talk a little bit about how not only that electrification and that switch is flipping, but also what we have to do about it and why you guys created this program.
I was going to say, my side of the industry is really that people focused and training focused. So the electrification, you might have to really deep dive with Josh on that one. I'm sure I will botch an explanation on that. But my role was to come in and figure out, all right, so all these things are changing in the industry. How are we going to train these people that we actually don't have? And part of that is creating new ways of training in a structured format that fits the mold for multiple contractors. And to give you some hindsight on how this started, it was a room full of contractors at our Electric Council meeting. And there was a lot of contractors talking about their struggle to train project managers. And part of it was that there wasn't a formal pathway for some of our smaller mid-sized contractors, and even some of our large contractors that do have training components didn't have a formal training program. So things that they were doing would be a lot of shadowing. You would shadow someone in the office when an opportunity arises. You would get an opportunity here and there to take the lead on a project, but it would take several years to get to A to B to C to D, and it wasn't really a formalized, structured pathway. So we sat down and we kind of pinpointed, why is this the case? And it was because, I can pull them into an entry-level admin position. I can pull them into an estimating, and they at least have something to do. And when I have time, I can train them. And that's been what we've been doing in project management for a very long time. And I actually know a lot of contractors who are now owners and CEOs of their companies who were trained that way. And they have helped us build this out to be like, hey, what you did in 10 years, we're trying to accomplish in 1 year. You're obviously not going to be overseeing multi-million projects on day 366 after you graduate the program, but we're giving you a structured foundation for you to understand the industry and develop yourself. Again, back to the people part. Project managers are managers, but they're also leaders. So if we're only teaching them technical management skills and not really turning them into leaders, we're going to see some struggles in the future. And we already have this skills gap. We already have a workforce gap. We have all these issues. The people that we have, we need to make sure we're training right. And then we can adopt that format to bring new people into the industry. So that's why this program started.
I want to save you on the electrification, because you don't actually need to understand the function of it. What you are seeing is the draw on people. Right. Ultimately, the electrification and the increase of electrification is creating a demand for people to manage the projects, do the work, do all the things that do it. So I think while maybe you don't understand the nuts and the bolts of the electrification, you certainly understand the ramification, which is this dire need for people, which I think was kind of cool, because I think you not only, this is what I like about Electri, NECA, is that you don't just say it, you quantify it. So I think you have some stats and stuff on that. And then, let's roll into those stats, because I want people to hear, like, it's not just us up here preaching some dire thing. It's real.
Absolutely. I actually nerded out this morning, and I have my handy index card with me. So I pulled some data from December 2024, so a few months ago, and the electrical construction workforce is expected to decline 14% by 2030, but the demand is projected to rise 25%. That's a huge gap that we're going to see in the industry. And then further, so my role is really focused on those like non-bargain office positions. However, I have a lot of overlap in all workforce development. So when you're seeing a shortage of electricians, that also translates into a shortage of office staff as well. So the demand is projected at 80,000 electricians annually through 2030. So the next 5 years, to at least help us condense that gap. That's a lot of people to train. And then with those people coming in, who is then moving up into those management roles, all of those scenarios start to unfold. And on top of that, 30% of electricians, union-specific electricians, are expected to retire in the next 5 to 6 years. And those are all the like wisdom in their head. They have so much wisdom in their head, and they're about to be retired in their nice cozy hammocks in their backyard, watching us figure out what to do in the industry.
And probably shaking in their boots. Nelson, you hearing those statistics, it leans itself as to why you would want to get involved as someone who supplies the industry, but also supports the industry. Those numbers are crazy.
They really are, and they're real. And part of it is just simply a generation is aging out. The baby boomers are aging out, and I happen to be one of them, so I understand that directly. And a lot of us, or as Anna said, you said, walking around with a lot of knowledge and a lot of capability. And then you couple that with the demand increasing, which is because of where electrification is going. And we both mentioned a bunch of end markets, but also semiconductor, where semiconductor company making massive investments. And so then, as we kind of look at this as a company, we've said, how do we get involved? How can we help? And what we've done is it's through our program called Wesco Cares. And it is our philanthropic program that basically is out there to ensure a presence in the markets that we operate in. So this means for us everything from, donating money to good causes, sponsoring activities. We're heavily involved in Habitat for Humanity, et cetera. And we've got employees who we give paid time off to go help build homes. And it's really for a couple of reasons. It is about giving back. And we want our employees to be active in the communities that they live in and really help to represent the company. So that's kind of cool. It's fun. It's exciting to be able to do these things, but it's great but it's not enough. And so one of the things that we discussed as a leadership team was, how do we get even further involved? And so one of the things that we looked at was, essentially this demand for more people to move into the electrical space. And as Anna said, that's everything from people in the field. It's project leadership and administration. It's back office. It's all those things. We've just got to get more people involved in that industry or in the industry. And so we decided that we were going to fund scholarships and make a multi-year commitment to be able to do that. And, partnering with ELECTRI, partnering with NECA, to really help people get into this as a vocation. And, because you got to start somewhere. And so this has been very successful. We're really only in our second year. And we're committed. We're going to stay the course for this because we see, first of all, the importance of it. And what we like to do, and we talk about this with our suppliers, we talk about it with our customers, we talk about it in general, is, and I said this a few minutes ago, it's a great industry to be a part of. And, we're all wondering about AI, and, we learn more every day about AI. AI is not going to replace this. AI, it will help make it more efficient and more effective, but we need the people. We need the people to come into this market. And you read these stories now about where people that go to school, they go to college, they graduate from college with an enormous amount of debt that they have to take decades to pay off. You can get into this industry and make a handsome salary very soon in your career, while you're, still in your early 20s, and have longevity because of this demand. So our goal is just to help stimulate that by providing scholarship money. And certainly I say this every time. So Jeff, I'll say it again. Anyone that touches the electrical space should be trying to do something to help here, whether you can help from a apprenticeship standpoint, just hiring people, whether you can donate money, whether you can create foundational support for this. It's extremely important that we work on every avenue here to make sure people understand what an attractive industry it is, what a great place to work and make a living, and get more people in there. And so we're trying to do our small part to make that happen.
We need those partnerships and we need people leaning in. And you are absolutely right. I have a neighbor whose son came out of high school and went right into being an apprentice, and they're paying for his apprenticeship. He's working every day. He's making more money than his friends, and he can live wherever he wants. He decided he wanted to move somewhere else, so he moved somewhere else, and he's going to go up through the ranks. But what I think is really interesting too is that there has been this misunderstanding in the trades in general, but I'll focus on electrical, that you come in as an electrician and that's where you stay. And now Anna talked about a little bit about how we do it at a little old school of hard knocks, but We used to. But you said a lot of those leaders, CEOs, presidents, people running the electrical companies now were those apprentices. They were those journeymen. They were those people. And then they had to learn the hard way. So that's why this program's so interesting to me, is that you're giving them a way to go from what I would consider, like, sure, that's the hard knocks way of learning it, but it's actually a really good, trade. And having that trade in your pocket, by the way, anyone listening, having that trade in the pocket means you'll always have work. Just true. Anna, talk about how you guys are focusing on making not only that journey into the journeyman phase even more for the employees, for the people coming into this industry.
It's actually been really interesting because I'll give some context here. When we decided to create this training program and we decided to make it an office apprenticeship, there were some raised eyebrows. We know apprenticeship is the staple of the electrical construction industry. We know that the field apprenticeship is the backbone of this industry. So when the word office apprenticeship or project management apprenticeship came into play, there was definitely a little bit of confusion. And I have spent over a year now trying to bring some clarity to that. What we did in our training model, it is a true apprenticeship. It's on-the-job training, earn while you learn, partnered with a company that's going to teach you while you're also getting your training. That model is meant to help open pathways for so many different types of people, whether you are currently in the field and are transitioning for whatever reason, because you're ready for a career progression, because you had an injury, because, there's something else going on that you now are going into a different setting. This helps. If you've had no experience in the industry, like green as can be, whether you've never been in the industry at all or never been in the workforce at all, this is designed to be a pathway for you to get your foot in the door. So we're trying to find a better word, but there's different profiles, I guess, of apprentices who are coming through the apprenticeship. We do have some people transitioning from the field. And to give you context right now, we kicked off our first cohort October 2024. Not very long ago. And we now have 70 apprentices from NECA contractors who have identified employees or hired new hires to come into this training program. And it's April 2025. That is a massive training progression and growth in a short amount of time. Of those apprentices enrolled in this project management apprenticeship, we have a handful that have come from the field and are transitioning now into the office, or they recently transitioned, within the last year or two and just haven't had formal training. And then we have some green folks who are coming in, arts degrees from college, now coming into the industry, trying to find their footing. And the way we treat the apprenticeship is that it's a year long. So the first quarter is that industry knowledge. If you've been in the field as a journey worker for years, your industry knowledge is probably pretty high. You don't need to retake all these foundational different elements. We really focus on building up your leadership and field to office transition skill set. If you are green coming in and you don't know the first thing about the electrical construction industry, you do take those courses because, like I said earlier, these people who are about to retire with decades of knowledge in their head, they have so much respect from their other, field foremen, project managers that are working with them because they know what it takes to make a project work. If you're just coming straight into an office, you haven't necessarily lived that life. So in our project management apprenticeship, we try to help at least put some understanding around this is actually what is going on in the field while you're managing these projects, either from, your office, on the job site, all those different things. But they're different candidates essentially coming in, and we're seeing different ages as well. So we have some, really thriving 20-year-olds stepping into the workforce, for the first time, really. And then we also have some more seasoned professionals who have had past career positions, past experiences that are bringing a whole nother lens into the program. And the nice thing about it is I get to launch these cohorts monthly. We have so many revisions, iterations, experiences that have gone on to help impact the next cohort already that it's basically a giant think tank of everyone's experience, knowledge, and perspective going in to craft the experience for the next person. So regardless of where you've come from, it's meant to be able to meet you where you are to help you find a foundation in project management.
Well, okay, you hit on a couple of things there. First, I'm going to go after, because you and I have had this discussion around the apprenticeship model. And what I want to say to anybody that struggles with the apprenticeship model, just understand that the highest form of compliment is imitation. That means it works, right? We can get into definitional, and apprenticeship is those things, but if it's bothering you there, just realize that that Anna and Nelson and the team is imitating what works and what grows. The other interesting thing that I think you're doing, and I believe, and I'm not in the room with you guys in the think tanks when all this goes on, but we have talked about for years, that group of people that's aging out and going to retire is taking that knowledge with them. And what we have to do is democratize what's in their brains. And this is part of that process of democratizing it by ingraining it in the DNA of this training program, of making it live on. And that's, I think, why you're already seeing it probably iterate really, really quickly.
I was going to say, what you just said is a beautiful connection that I haven't actually verbalized before, but every apprentice at their company is paired with a mentor manager from their company. And most of the times, those are the people with all of the knowledge in their head and not necessarily written down in an SOP or a statement of just beautiful things they know. These apprentices are pulling it out of them, and we task them with documenting it and showcasing it in different projects, assignments, etc. throughout the program. So enrolling an apprentice in this program is essentially creating a pipeline to pull out some of this knowledge from all of these really experienced, seasoned wisdom wizards in our industry already. And it's creating these connections. I like the fact that our program partners, American Apprenticeship Works, I kept referring to these company managers as managers, and they're really mentors. And still that word in how you're talking, and that will start flowing a little bit more. They're mentors for these apprentices, which means they're not just checking a box saying, you do this, you do that, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. They're helping them figure it out while they're going through it. And the apprentices are also in return saying like, hey, I'm really tech savvy, or I have a lot of experience here. Let me teach you how to do X, Y, and Z and make it a little bit easier on your life. It's that give and take, two-way street. And I wouldn't say it was an unintentional part of this program, but we are learning that these apprentices are pulling out that knowledge from these really great brains and helping create a place for it to live after these people retire.
And that is the byproduct of a really thoughtful program that's doing the right thing. And we call it, in our world, it's been called a symbiotic mentorship. That's where both sides get something. And it's always, you've gotten something as the mentor in sort of a gratification and a feeling of accomplishment on helping somebody in their career. But wow, can we now use the technology and the tools to ingrain that back in and, make that SOP that was in their head and that gotcha that was in their head is now codified in a system somewhere that can live on and, we can learn from. So what I want to do to wrap it up, we're getting to that point, but Nelson, you guys got involved and you're doing a lot to shape this talent and to invest. What are your thoughts on this sort of vision of the future and where we're headed as an electrical and a construction industry?
Yeah, Jeff, it's a great question, and I want to kind of quickly look back and then look forward and kind of emphasize something that you said, that learning that skill, you're always going to be able to find work. An apprentice program like what ELECTRI has set up, pretty much every industry is trying to model something very similar. You could, pairing a senior person with a junior person, and I think all of us who have been around and learned, it's a lot easier to learn that way than reading a book. That's going to be a part of it. And obviously in the electrical world, there's certifications and things like that, but getting out and watching it get done and is I think going to bring people up to speed faster. And so, I think looking back, we know we had what I would call a secular, the secular trends were not like they are today, meaning the electrical industry kind of moved with GDP. It moved with investment, et cetera, et cetera. We now have secular trends that are with us and they're going to stay with us. And regardless of who's running the country or who's wherever, the demand is going to surpass all of that consternation, all that concern. And we're seeing it every day. And so I think as we look forward, again, what we're trying to do is leverage our scale and capability to help bring in people. We just want more people to get into this industry, regardless of where they go to work, frankly, because it's going to help everybody out. Because we've all said this, but I'll state it, very succinctly. Labor is going to be the issue that prevents activity from happening. It is the number one constraint. And then when you put the electrical industry involved, it's skilled labor. And so it's not just somebody that can, work in a warehouse or drive a truck. I mean, there is a upskilling that's needed. And so I think, the biggest takeaway for us is this is not going to change in a year or two. This is going to be a multi-decade challenge. And the other piece of this is, while we've talked about baby boomers and people aging out, the succeeding generations have fewer in the population. So actually the pool to draw from is actually shrinking. So, just people having less offspring than 40 or 50 years ago. And so I think it's going to be even more important for us to be all aligned, all dedicated, and look past and look above, say, the competitive environment that we operate in, and say it's going to be better for everyone, regardless of where you fit, whether it's, foundations, doing great work like ELECTRI and NECA and others like NAED and NEMA and so forth. How can we better work together as an organization all in to solve these problems, because we've all got them, and the strength of us pulling together and trying to figure that out is going to be much better and I think much more impactful than if we just each try to solve it on our own.
Yeah, I love that objective look at it, because I always look at it as a marketing person, from my days in marketing, of saying, like, listen, I think this industry needs to create the largest marketing funnel on the planet for people to bring them in, and fall where they may, you're going to benefit. So I think it's awesome. And I think it's a great process. And to Anna, I want to thank you for what you're doing and your dedication and the time and energy you put into it. And, I love the team at ELECTRI. So talk a little bit about, just ending it off on your final thoughts on, where this is going and maybe where people can get involved.
Oh my gosh, where is this thing going? It's going to be big, because we're putting so much effort into making it be what it needs to be for our NECA contractors. And we have the capacity to take hundreds of apprentices a year. It's just really that getting contractors familiar with how it works, the onboarding part, what it's actually going to look like when it's playing out during the week, or are these assignments, if they're doing this, are they losing time from their day-to-day? It's that education piece, and I have presentations on that for another time. But I think one of the biggest things, and where I see us going, not just as a program, but as an industry, is we have to be more creative about thinking how we're going to get more people in. This is a whole new generation of people who are coming into the workforce. They are very technologically savvy. They are very comfortable being in different settings. It's not necessarily an office environment. They want flexibility, things like that. How are we going to meet that? And can we do it in our industry? And there's going to be answers where sometimes it's yes, and there's going to be answers when it's no. So when it becomes a barrier, how are we overcoming that to make sure that we're still providing those opportunities? Because we can preach opportunity left and right, but if it's not the opportunity they're looking for, then why would they spend their time getting involved in it? So as a company owner, as a manager, as an employee who is new to the team, when you're thinking about how do we get more people, think about what you want to see, because I'm sure there's somebody on the other side somewhere else in an outside industry that's looking for career opportunities, and they probably want some of those same things that you want, So how are you making it work for yourself and your role? And how can your company help provide that for other people? And then let us plug in the training. Like, we will take care of that for you. You find the people who fit your company. You get creative with how you're, thinking about an employee's role or those types of things in your organization. And then we will help get you the education and training you need to make sure that it's a flow that works for your organization. But overall, I have a marketing mindset on all of this too. We just need to be connecting the dots more of like what we're putting out there as the opportunity versus what they actually want to see as the opportunity. And right now, I hate to say it, but like, I don't think they align all the time.
No, I think you're right, Anna. And I think it's awesome to see you investing your time and being a part of pushing, because I've seen your passion over the time with this. So I know this is going to keep growing. And my only hope is that they overload you and that you have to grow that even more, because that means this thing is being successful. And so with that, I got to wrap it up today, guys. This has been absolutely awesome. I'm so excited to see how this program goes. We will be touching in Nelson. We can do a different one on maybe who ends up being the quarterback in Pittsburgh, whether you're having a pity party or who knows what, but we know it's not who you had last year. So all we know is it's going to be new. And after that, we'll figure it out. And Anna, you and I got to catch up somewhere cool again in the future. I'm sure we will. Stay in touch. With that, I want to thank you guys for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for tuning in today to geek out for our interview with Nelson Squires and Anna Jochim. To read all our news stories, learn more about our guests, and to listen to this show, visit thecontechcrew.com. This is the ConTech Crew signing out. Until next time, enjoy the ride and geek out.